Hello. Everybody here? It's a message to you. We're going to give a little bit of time.
Writing's not that easy, but Grammarly can help. This sentence is grammatically correct.
Hello, Richard. We're going to start the show here in a second. Happy Sunday, Chris. We're going to talk about how I arrive at my watch list here in a second. Okay, I'm gonna shut this music off. One of my favorite romantic songs right there, Christopher Cross. So, welcome everybody. Got a real big show today I see right now. I'm gonna share this on stock trips real fast. Okay, I'm about ready to begin. Okay. Hello, Mohammed, Joe, Chris. Well, first thing I do, I'm going to do two things today. I'm going to show you how I create my morning watch list along with the watch list I already have prepared. And I'm going to talk about how I form it from the scanner of trade ideas. And then after that, I'm going to talk about the moving averages that I use, and I use many of them. Plus I use the VWAP. I use the EMAs, but today I'm going to discuss the SMAs. And then next week I'll talk about the EMAs. But you know, I'm pretty well rehearsed in chart patterns and things like that. But usually on a breakout stock, I like to play the SMAs for a pullback or a dead cat bounce, or finding that it's in a trend or not, and keeping above that trend. So that's pretty important to me. At least everybody has a different strategy to trade with. And my strategy is basically I like to play the pullbacks. I don't like to chase. I do follow a trend though. If a trend's moving up, I'll get into it and hold it as long as I can. And SMAs are a simple moving average, one that you could use on long-term swing plays, and also you could use them as supports, pivot points, and resistances on a day trade. And you can use them the same way on a long swing trade, but they're simple and you don't have to worry too much about them, and they're great for playing dead cat bounces and pullbacks, and always if them fail I move to my VWAP, or I look at a different arsenal in my trading book. So as you know, we've been working off trade ideas, and it's a platform that gives us a scanning tool. We named her Stella, and she likes to spit them out in the morning, and I like to get involved in the what I call the up gaps, the ones that gap up in the morning. And Friday's big trade of the week was Silo, so I'm going to type in Silo here on my watch list. This is how I kind of start my daily watch list in the morning, pre-market, and then I can kind of weed them out as the day progresses, usually when the bell rings. And I might jump in one or two of these trades and scalp it first thing in the morning, but I hardly ever stick with it. I'm usually out of it by the time the bell rings. And I do that, you know, in the morning. So I use platform I'm using right now is Thinkorswim. It's Ameritrade, and this is the platform that I use, and it has my message center on it. It has my watch list right here, and then I have my news that pops up in the morning. And then I can go ahead and post my charts over here. And then on my charts I have the moving average set up, and I also have what I call the news and the level 2, and the tape tells me the time in sales, how big the block trades are coming in. And right now I don't have my 20 SMA on here, so what I'm going to do is show you how I added on the Thinkorswim platform. I go into studies, I add studies, and I'll type in moving average, MOVING, and right up the bat comes the simple moving average. Well, I should type in simple first, it'll probably help. And then I just double click simple moving average on it, it pops up in this window. So I go to the gearbox and I'll change this to 20. And once I change it to 20, I'll change the color of it. And I want to make it white. And I want to have a pretty good little trend line barrier on it. So I'll make sure everything's set fine. And there's other things in here too. You can show breakout signals. You can turn yes on it. You can have yes or no. I want to keep it at no right now, but it'll point a little arrow when they think it's ready for a breakout or not. Then you have your up signals and your down signals, however color you want to make them. But right now we're just going to stick it like this, and I'm going to hit the OK. I'm going to apply, then hit the OK again, and there's my 20 SMA moving average. And I do that with all the other ones. Right here on this chart I have the 20, I have the 50, I have the 100, and I have the 200. And like I said before, everybody trades their own little way that fits them best. You know, this is just the way I like to do it, and the way I've been practicing it for years. And it seems like the last couple of years I've added, especially the 20, I've added for more of a day trade tool. And you can go all the way back to a 10, and that kind of works as an 8 on an EMA. And I think the 8 EMA is probably the best one to use. The 8, the 13, and the 20 for if you're day trading. So if you want to get in and out of a stock, that's how you do that. Now the simple moving averages are for maybe a long-term play, or as I use them, as a long-term swing play, or as a pullback, and it follows the trend, and I'm able to follow the trend with a 20. And also there's a couple other things. I'll get the golden cross when the 50 crosses up over the 200, and or vice versa, a weakness when maybe the 20 starts to dip down under the other three moving averages is a big sign of weakness. So let's go back to the watch list here. Now I'm going to type in the first ticker off the bat that was the big runner that we played Friday, and also the one that I got beat up in at the end of the day because I didn't stick with my plan. And that was my mistake. And I'm definitely coming back Monday stronger and better than I did Friday, because it kind of reminds myself you can get complacent. So I'm going to also type in ACHV because it was on top of the scanner here. And I have these scanners set up for up gaps, the ones that gap up in the morning a little bit. And I also have another scan set up for a 3% breakout, which I also use, and I'll pull that up here in a little bit on Ameritrade. Then I'm going to look at MDCA. We're just going to type these in. And these are the ways that I try to find out the stocks. Rodka, I think everybody remembers that one Friday, RKDA. She was a beauty. And these are all stocks that break out in the morning, usually on news. Whoop, got to type in the right tickers, right letters. And KPTI I'm going to put in here. And I'm creating a watch list. I'm seeing any others down here that I like, so I'm going to put that CIDM in next. Add that baby, and let's do a couple more. Let's put Assure in. And then last but not least, let's put BIOS in, BIOS. So I've more or less started me a little scanner here, started me a little watch list, and I picked that up off the morning gappers. And also I'll be adding tickers to it. This is our Trade Ideas scanner that we have in the room. I'll also be adding tickers that come up on the scanner itself. Let me go back here. Let's see if anything pops up in the loading department here. And there's also another one that we use that have pop-ups that come in first thing in the morning, and that's this VVS 5-day high, which I really like because it pops up pretty fast tickers right in the morning. Now you see AVGR, we talked about that a little bit, so I'm going to put that baby on here, and I'm creating a watch list. This is how I start my day. And AVGO, I'm going to add that one in here. And then I'm going to do something different. So I'm going to put these back. So we got that VVS 5-day new high. That's a good one to watch. And you might want to add some of your stocks that you have on your watch list that you were watching the previous night that you want to add to this list. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at some other ones that we've been watching. And this is on my penny stock scan 5-day highs. I remember ATOS was on the ticker. It ran pretty good the day before. We made money on that. And I'm going to add these top ones here, maybe AKTX. So here I am. I'm setting up. I'm going to put DCAR on here. DCAR is one that we've had on the watch list for a while. And let's not forget about one that ran Friday, that BA, Boeing. You know, we've been having it on watch here, and that was a big play for one of our best callers in the room, Rich. Thank you a lot for alerting the room that call. So now I'm going to take and I'm going to just move this over, and I'm going to pull up another scan. See, I've got the scan created right here on my thingamajigger. So I'm going to pull up what I call set up. I have another scan set on TOS. That's called the ascending scan. Ascending scan that gives me, which I call the room scan. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to detach this, get this off here, and then I'm going to pull this off. And then I'm going to add that to our watch list that we made this morning, first thing in the morning. And I remember, and people know that I've had ACB on my watch list for a while now, and we were very bullish on that stock last week. We alerted at the beginning of the week when Nelson Pelps came out and was a hedge fund manager, and that was big news for this stock. And let's see what else is on here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up me a little chart because I want to look at some of these as we're moving along. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. I'm going to move this watch list right over here. So I've got two watch lists that I'm starting with right off the bat. Now I can go ahead and I can change this up to like a yearly, and I like to start off, well, if I'm day trading, you know, I'm going to pop right in there, but I like to look at the yearly chart, which tells a lot of history. We had CHK, which I got out of Friday, or was that, might have been Thursday on my option play. Once it hit my target, I was satisfied with it at 310, and I got out of it. Because, you know, I'm not the one that's going to sit here and watch them pull back and get stuck in them. So that was the first one that popped up in there. Now I got these on Ameritrade. I got it to where I put in my little red box, so every time I hit a ticker, it'll take me right to that chart. It'll take me right to that chart. You know, ACB, been running that trend line all the way up to the top. We talked about that in our aftermarket report. CHK, we identified the trend on it. We hit the bottom support. We called it out in the room. People got in it. I had a pivot point that I had to hit. I hit that pivot point, and then I hit my resistance, which was right at $3, and I took it to 310. Some had a 321 target on it, but I'm not going to stretch it out. BA had a wonderful run Friday, changes to like the 1 minute. It was called out in the room. You could tell on a 5-day chart, right, you know, that's not the 5-day. You could tell on that 5-day chart that it consolidated at a certain level. And that level was right down here around 366. 367. So people got in that option, ran it up, and ran it from like $2 all the way up to 15. I mean, it's a lot of money for an option play, because each contract you gotta have 100 shares. Now, if you bought 20 contracts, you'd have made some real good money on that play. And just because I missed it doesn't mean I'll get another chance to play it again, which I will. And them opportunities come up all the time. It's just Friday was not the best day for me, and I just wasn't things weren't going my way very well, and just the way it is sometimes. They're easy to identify, and when you do, you just kind of want to lay back and not break the rules. But so now I've got my rooms watch list that I carry with me every day. It's ascending breakouts from $1 to $10, above 3%, with a volume over 300 grand, 300,000 in shares. Also has my float size on it, which I don't trust with toss, so I always go to FinViz. So let's talk about the stock that I did good on, and then I end up losing money on because I got caught in a big, huge, fast knife, and I should have known better. And that's SLNO. SLNO was at $1.11 the previous day. It got news, so it decided to go ahead and take off pre-market. Now this is something that you identify when you're in a trade, of the consistency that it had from my trend lines. And I'm going to draw these trend lines up, and I'm going to erase them here and show you how I played the play. But this is what I ended up with the rest of the day. Now I took this trade up here to 241, and that's when I started thinking about getting in it. But I waited until the bell rung, because I didn't know if it was going to pull back to this support or not, because it was already, at that time, it already ran up 50 cents with three big old white soldiers in play. Usually when three white soldiers appear, it'll consolidate, maybe pull back a little, and then go ahead and bounce on back up. But she went ahead and ran on up and just had a heck of a morning. And these are the plays you want to watch, especially when they break out so big and so fast and so strong. And so this one here hit a high here around 433 and pulled back. Now I'm going to erase all these trend lines in this chart. I'm going to show you how I drew them up throughout the day. And I've got this on my watch list that I created, and it was my number one play of the day, along with ACB, and then, of course, BA, and I also scalped ATOS, which had a previous day run for about 50 bucks. So I had a lot of little plays I was doing throughout the day, and I was pretty happy until I got stuck in that knife on this one right here, and it just grabbed me up. I turned my head within a minute and a half, and I was down 500 bucks on that trade. Kind of put me in a sour grape. So I'm going to erase all these trend lines, clear the drawing set. So the first thing I want to do when I'm drawing up these trend lines is I want to look for a place of consolidation or a place of resistance. And that first place of resistance started right here first thing in the morning. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this chart bigger so everybody can see it. So my first point of resistance, or my first point of support, was right down here at the very bottom, here at 135. So I'm going to draw a trend line right there. And then once it's hit the resistance here and it moved on to the next minute, I've got this set on 5 minutes, so I'm going to change this to 1, because that's the way I usually play these babies. And I see another little spot right here where it kind of consolidated a little bit, so I'm going to draw me a trend line right there. And then we got up here to the resistance, and she kind of started to pull back, so I'm going to draw me a little trend line right in here at this little base of this candle. Now I'm starting to draw my trend lines as I move up. So the morning came, and it just kept on going up. And then once the bell rung, it consolidated a little bit right here. So I'm going to draw me a trend line in this spot right in here, right at what I think is resistance. So she went ahead and broke up, then she consolidated again right in this area right here. You see where those three up and down signals. But what we have right here is an ascending breakout pattern flag. And I'm going to show you what I mean by ascending breakout flag. So I'm going to draw get my other little winder here, get my other little drawing tool, and she started a little ascending breakout, and that was a good identification to get in this stock pretty soon because we were going to have another breakout by the time it squeezed to this end. And that's what she did. So this is what you call an ascending pattern. Most of them call it a pennant flag. I call it the what's his name? If I can't think of his name right now, but that's what you call an ascending pattern. And usually when you see something like that with lower highs and then you see that flat line resistance there, you're going to have a breakout. And that's what we had. Once it started getting to the end of that flag, she went ahead and broke out. So I'm going to draw me some resistance lines on this chart. And I'm seeing one right in here where the next minute came, and so I'm going to draw another one probably right here. Right there where that consolidated period within 2 minutes. Whoops. I gotta get right back there. And I'm going to change this over to my trend lines. And I'm going to draw me a little support level right in here. Right about there. Because I'm seeing a consolidated period right there. And that's going to be what I call a resistance, and maybe later on the day it can pull back to that spot. I'm seeing another one right in here where it kind of consolidated here and consolidated here. So I'm going to draw one right there on that pullback. See where that pulled back right there? So I'm drawing these trend lines as I'm going. This space right in here. And I'm creating what I call supports and resistances. I'm in this trade already. So, and by the time it got up to this level and pulled back, I'm going to say I'm going to give it another chance and see what happens. It kind of started showing a descending pattern, but also it hit this 20 SMA. 20 SMA, you notice it followed all the way up on that 20 SMA all the way up to the top. It pulled back right here, that 20 SMA, and landed on that ascending, what I would call an ascending flag. So it still was very strong. This trade was very strong, showing that ascending flag and that running that 20 SMA. Excuse me. So we went ahead and we bounced on up there, and then she came back and hit that 20 again, which still was a solid support. And this stock, I would call this a very strong stock because it didn't do a lot of this zigzagging around and stuff and created a channel, which I'd have played it too. But what it did show is that it was a very strong stock, and the volume and the tape that I had on here, and the level 2 was just very positive on the trade. There's a halfway decent spread, but it was very active. And the spread would tighten up, and then it would go ahead and break on up a little bit higher. So I'm drawing these trend lines as I go, and I'm now finding me another resistance right about in here. So I'm playing this stock. I'm in and out of it twice already. And then I'm going to draw a couple trend lines right in here where I think is consolidated resistance areas. And you see once we hit that 20, we pulled back up and we hit that other resistance, and she failed. And then she started showing just a little bit of sign of weakness. But when this pullback came and it ran to that other consolidated area, I wasn't too scared of it yet because the momentum was still in it and it was still rising. And this was already about an hour and a half into the day, maybe a couple hours into the day from pre-market. So then she bounced on up and started gaining faith once she went above that 20 SMA, and then we started consolidating in a channel. So there was a couple times where a person could have scalped right in here if they were scalping it, or if they would have held on like Miss Vegas did. She said that she held on this most of the day and hit her little target up here at $6. And I'll show you that here in a second. So we started consolidating. So I'm drawing these trend lines for resistance and supports. And as I'm doing it, the stock decides to go ahead and pull back a little bit back to that trend line again that I had here at 418. So it was a very strong support area, and it created a little channel in there. Then it bounced up and hit that other resistance from 418 to 441 would have been another nice little 30-cent scalp. And then here about midday, or not midday, but before lunch, what the time was, it was around, yeah, see, this wasn't even an hour and a half into the trading day. She went ahead and bounced on up and started creating new resistance areas. So I'm drawing trend lines as I go, and I use these trend lines over and over and over again. And you notice the stock, it came back and hit that 100, started showing sign of weakness. And to me, when I see a sign of weakness, it's when that 20 SMA starts to bend over all these other moving averages. And down here, we went under that moving average. So you could have ran this stock all the way from that opening bell, which was right in this area here at 295, and got out of it at $5, or even up here at 479 as it started to pull back. But it really didn't start losing weakness until this 20 days started to bend down over the other moving averages. And that's when I would have got out of the trade, and I probably did if I can look back at my paperwork. But I was scalping it on the way up. And so what we did here is we came back and we hit that 200. That 200 was another position maybe that I would have got in it, but I still wasn't happy because that 50 started going down below that 200. So here we are at the end of the day, and the fool that I am, I got back in this stock right up around here around 441, rode it on up to this little high here at 557, thinking it was going to run back up to 5 and hit that double top and maybe concede to the next day and run up. But instead, the shorts got a hold of it and I was trapped. And if I remember right, I think I got in it again at 418 thinking that I hit a bottom here, and then bam, it just went down. And so I got stuck in this trade, and I finally got out right around this 330 something area, right in this third crow. And by that time, it was too late. So then she went ahead and dipped on down here below the opening bell at this previous support that I had down here, which was a resistance at 239. And then went ahead and bounced on up after hours from 239 up to this, which I'm going to draw another trend line in here, which is right around that 280 spot. So what I do when I'm looking at these moving averages, there's a couple things you got to think about. You can use them as supports, pivot points, and resistances, or you could like follow them up above the 20 and use it as a sell indicator, which is very bullish. And so the moving averages, they identify areas of support and they identify areas of resistance. And this is the simple moving average or any kind of EMA or any kind of other moving average. So they're identifiers. They let you know they're lagging they lag. They're a lagging indicator. So, they lag behind the price action. And it's just something you got to pay attention to. But they're also, when they're lagging, they also kind of give you an indication if the stock wants to move up or if it wants to pull back more. And so they're based on past prices, and they're a lagging indicator. And that's something that you got to recognize when you're dealing with these moving averages. And say they don't warn you in advance, but they do me because I'm using my trend lines. And it will confirm a trend, that's taken place. And the change that has taken place. So there might be a lagging indicator, but they're also telling you of an upcoming trend that's on its way. You can see that in advance if you use them long enough. They're great for bounce backs or breakout plays. I mean, when your price action is below your moving average, it's a lagging indicator saying that that it's weak. But once it crosses that moving average, it starts to become a little bit bullish. And in this case, this stock wasn't very bullish. It pulled back and got weak again. But then it started bouncing above that moving average, and there's your little scalp play or some kind of indicator. And that's what I always tell people. You might be a good idea to learn chart patterns, to learn how to use your chart patterns, or because they're also identifiers too, that can tell you if a stock's bullish or not. So we had what you would call three white soldiers right here. It became bullish. So this would have been a trade. And then it started to run above the moving average, which I'm going to call right now, this is going to be my 20, because I'm very bullish on the stock. And what stocks do is they run up and they pull back. It's just a natural trait. They just don't run straight up. They just run up and they pull back, and a lot of times when they run up, they'll pull back and hit that moving average and then bounce above it. So it's still in strength and it's respecting that moving average. But then it'll come to a time where it'll start to disrespect it. And that's when you want to maybe sell the when you see that moving average start to curve down. That's maybe a time that you want to take your profit. And you can use, like I said, these are simple moving averages, which you could use on a yearly, different time frames. They all act different on different time frames. So your 10 and your 20 is good for like scalping and playing a day trade, and then your 50 and your 100 and your 200 are good for like swing trades, and they'll tell you where a support and a resistance level is. So they're good for breakout bounces. They also give you indications to buy and sell. You want to sell it once it goes below that moving average, and maybe you want to pick it up and buy it when it starts to rise above that moving average. And you can do that with either the EMAs or the SMAs. So it's an indicator to tell you it's lagging, but it's also telling you in advance if you want to sell it or if you want to buy it. If you want to sell it in advance where it drops down more, or if you want to buy it once it hits a couple of your confirmations. And these are stocks that I'm very bullish in to begin with. So, and then it gives you here at the end, you can see where it had to sell. It tells you that you maybe want to get out of this stock after you've rode it up from maybe $1.50 up to $2 and take your 50-cent profit. Because I'm telling you, a lot of times they'll just pull right back to support level, and you can do the same thing over and over again. That's not alcohol, that's water. So the next one that we're going to talk about is moving average. Will tell you, it's an instrument. They'll tell you if it's trending up, if it's trending down, or if it's just ranging, for a good long swing trade. So that's another indicator. And then you got, you choose the time periods that you want to use them for. Commonly used is the 10 and the 20 for short-term trends, which I talked about. Then you got the 50 for mid-term trends. Then you got the 200 for long-term trends. Then I also added the 100 in here. And I use all these little indicators for supports, pivot points, and resistances. And when I say trend reversal, that's what I was talking about before, when you want to possibly sell a stock when it's below the trend and the trend's starting to reverse. Or if trend wants to reverse upwards and be above the moving average, which is a buying indicator or a hold until that trend becomes to another reversal. And then it could go back down, and it could go down below this lower support level. So that's where my trend lines come into effect, because I'm identifying places of consolidation. And a lot of these stocks will trend back down to that consolidated area and then bounce back up. And I've talked about this many a times, that supports, resistances, and pivot points can change, and a support could become a resistance at one time, or vice versa. A resistance could fall back and hit that pivot point, and that pivot point would become a support. So that's always something to pay attention to. So there's different trends and then we've got the moving averages also indicate other things. I've got like my 50 and my 200, and I call out golden crosses in the room a lot. And I do, because that's a powerful tool that the stock's going to rise up. And when you can identify the 50 SMA crossing over the 200, you have what you call an upward trend. And then you can make profit on that. And they'll pull back and maybe hit that 50, or even pull back and hit that 200, which that 200 would become a support level. And if it goes below that 200, I definitely would probably want to go ahead and get out of the trade, because it disrespected that 200 trend. And that's the same way as the 50. It could bounce above it, then pull back and disrespect a little bit of that 50, but it started turning around, so I would look for indicators that would tell me that the stock would want to rise back up. And we tried to touch that 50 here again, but it kept going. But it's the golden cross that caught my eye. And maybe if I was doing this trade, I would have took it down here and got in it and sold it at the resistance level of that 200 SMA. So you're creating what you call a support. The stock's still weak because it did not cross over yet. So I would have scalped this play maybe down here at the 270 level, or 20, oh, that's more than that, 3270 level, and sold it up here at 3290. Or, yeah, and maybe scalped it for 20 cents, but that could be a lot more too, it depends on what ticker you're watching and and how bullish the trade is in itself. I like I said, I like to find out about history of the news and the earnings, and I like to watch the tape. I like to see the block trades coming in, see if the buyers are coming in, and that's just some indicators that I do. So we're going to go through a couple charts now of the watch list that I had. Let me erase all these babies. And first thing I do is a lot of times I'll look at the yearly chart and I'll see where we are on the yearly chart. But sometimes it tells me a big story. Look at the volume bar on this baby that we had Friday. I mean, this was really, and it was down here at a year low the day before at 111. So when the news came out on this trade, it just went ahead and bounced up big time. And we had a resistance right up here, right around, we had two resistances. We had one here at 343, and we had another one right here. And you can see where that base of that candle pulled back that day and had a little resistance at 309. So we definitely went past the 1 year high on this trade. And it broke out pretty high right here. It broke out at 250 that morning. So we were already batting up here at what I would call maybe a resistance level to begin with, or pretty close to a pivot point on the year's chart. And that pivot point to me would be probably right around in here, right around 212, because I'm looking at this area right here where it failed it and it bounced up and tried to pull back and kept riding up that 20 SMA. So you can use these indicators for swing trades, knowing when, like the 20 was above these other moving averages, which would have gave me the momentum back in this day here to hit that golden cross to jump in it. That golden cross was right here after the pullback. See, we had the pullback, and then that golden cross showed up right there, and I'd probably jumped in that trade once it hit that 20 SMA and took it all the way up from 234 up to 309, made $70 on that scalp. But she did pull back again and hit that 50 and bounced up again. So they're just great indicators for identifying. We're lagging indicators, but yet it can tell you what's going to happen in the future too, and that's what I like about them. And so that's what we're looking at right there. So I'm going to bring this up one more time, then we're going to go to a couple other trades. I'd like to go to the 20-day and look at it. I'm drawing trend lines on a 20-day too, but I drew all these trend lines already. You see me do that in the morning, and look how they all kind of hovered around. I might add another one right here at 228, but it seems like pretty well the picture's been wrote on this trade right here. Then I'll go ahead and I'll go to the 3-minute, and I'll just double check everything. But you see, from this resistance right here, at the end of the day, the stock pulled right back to that resistance we had that I've talked about before, the previous high in the morning, and it pulled right back to that spot. So I could have probably scalped that after hours and got back in it. But by this time, this here really scared me, all this negativity here. And when a stock comes from 146 all the way up to $5, you got a whole new breed of traders that are going to come in here and look at this and try to short it. And they did try to short it right here, and they got away with it at the end of the day. They said, they failed here, so they said, we're going to give it another try at the end of the day. And when we're going to look at something that I like to tell people that are trading that I didn't really recognize earlier, when it does have a breakout, it does like to pull back. It doesn't succeed and it pulls back. So every good breakout, you're going to have pullbacks. And that's what I should have probably recognized with this huge breakout that came out Friday, because it ran all the way up to $5, is way past the resistance that it held. And I should have realized that this thing was not going to hold. So, that's why I think Vegas got out of this trade at a good time. She set her stops, and she's very careful about that, and so am I. I just made a foolish mistake on that trade Friday. So we're going to pull up a couple more watch lists here. We're going to look at ACB. We're going to see what the moving averages tell us on ACB. And then I also have what you call a VWAP chart. The VWAP chart. And I'm going to go ahead and pull that. Where is it? Well, it's not on here. No, I don't know what the problem is. You've got to sit that in there. So I'm always watching the VWAP chart too. That's another tool that you can use if the moving averages fail. And this is another great example of how it held above the VWAP. It run up and it held, and then it finally touched down to the VWAP here. And a strong trade like this, you're going to have bounces off that VWAP, and it bounced off that VWAP, many a times throughout the day, and then finally gave up at the end. And once it broke below that third bottom VWAP line, it was all over with. But that was a hard knife. That you just looking at it just makes me sick. So here we go. We're going to look at a couple other trades. We're going to look at ACB. ACB on the VWAP here. I'll just move this over so we can see it. And a lot of times when I'm playing the VWAP chart, you have like that little pullback that runs this lower line right in here. You see how it runs that lower line, and then she went ahead and bounced up and hit that top line and pulled back and hit that VWAP. That would have been another time to get in this trade, as the indicators were telling me that this thing was going to go up more. And we were very bullish on this stock to begin with because of the news. And I've always said for the last, that this is probably the most undervalued stock out there in the pot sector. And I'm still saying it. It's way undervalued. And I got into some options on this trade, and I'm doing very well on it. But she went ahead and followed that top line VWAP, and then just never did touch this center one again, which is still telling me, even after hours, it's up after hours. And I'm thinking we're going to come in here Monday, and we're going to try to break that $10 this coming week very easily, and maybe run back up to the old resistance on this stock right now. And so every chart has a tendency of telling a story. And this is the VWAP chart, so I'm going to take this one off, and I'm going to pull up my yearly moving average chart that I like to watch. And you notice how the stock ran up above the 20 SMA, and which is very strong for this period, and then all of a sudden we had that big sell-off, and it pulled back. And then it found a bottom support line right down in here and created a new channel, and we called this out in the room when it was down here at around $5. I said, let's keep a good eye on this thing, because we've touched down before here the previous time, and it ran all the way up to 12. And I think we're going to get the same story out of it again. I think once we find this little resistance area up in here, then we might have a little difficulty around 1045. But with Nelson Pelps involved in this trade now, and that other stock we looked at this weekend, what was that one? That was HRVSF, that had one of the biggest pot deals so far coming today. I think it's going to be a lot of these other pot stocks are going to start moving again because a lot of them have sold off. All but this one here. This one's very strong. So we're going to break that $10 mark very easily this coming week, and we're going to rise it up, and we're going to try to get up in these other trend lines that I have as a resistance. But I'm using my moving averages too. I noticed that the 50 is starting to cross over the 100 and the 200, and the 20 is already above all three of them, which is telling me that this is going to be a strong stock this coming week also. And look, it's been a strong stock for 3 months now. It has had some pullbacks, but it's also fell in trend line, which is a good deal for me. And we played this on CHK, almost the exact same pattern, where it bounced up, hit the top trend line, pulled back, and hit that bottom trend line. And in the last 4 or 5 days, she's bounced on up from, you know, a good 736 all the way to 961. That's $2 and some trade there, $1.90. So we've got this on our watch list. Let's pull up another one and see what we got. CHK. Magnify this up a little bit. CHK was a stock that ran up here at 560, and she's pulled back pretty hard here in that big huge sell-off back in December, which I alerted the room. Disrespected the 20 all the way down, that 20 SMA. So it wasn't a time to get in this trade. But once we hit a bottom here, it started bouncing up. The 20 started curling up. The 50 started curling up. The 200 is still sitting up here. So this trade, you know, sometime this year is going to run back up here to top this trend. But I got out of this trade at 310 last week. Could have been Thursday when I got out of this trade. And then Friday it pulled back a little bit more, and it probably pulled back to this pivot point area and then bounce on back up and retrace on up as this trend line starts to follow itself up. Or it could pull back and hit this trend at 280, 281 and go ahead and continue on up. So there's different ways of using the moving averages, and then you want to add your own trend lines, and you want to play the VWAP. So let's look at the VWAP on CHK. Where are you? There you are. We're going to change this to a daily 1 minute. Okay, some can hear and some can't hear. But I tested this out pretty good. It sounded like it was okay. I can turn up might get some output noise, but that's a little bit louder. How's that sound? So here's your VWAP. We're down here at the bottom, and she curled on up. I mean, she sold off a little bit, but you know, it failed the VWAP all day Friday and kept going on down and following this bottom part. So, you know, that's that. But we'll look at this on a daily chart and see how it looks on a daily if we were going to use the moving averages. And again, you know, it disrespected most of the day that 20, kind of held down below it and just followed that 20. So I was lucky to, I was smart to get out of this at 310 because it did hit my target, and once it hits my target, I'm usually out. So let's look at another one on the watch list, and then I'm going to ask some of the people in the group to give me a couple tickers, and we're going to see what they look like on my moving averages. So I showed you kind of how to create a watch list. And here's another one, BA. BA had that beautiful little run Friday. We had the 20 right down here. And then she kind of curled up. The 20 kind of curled up, and we had the golden cross active right here. The 50 run above the 200. So we did already hit a support that hit a few times already in the past week. And I'm going to show you what I meant by that. This bottom line support level, we touched there. And I'd say that around the 370 area We had some solid, and then got a little oversold at 263, but she bounced up around that 270 area, and that would have been a good idea because it's touched down what 5 times in a week, and she bounced up here to this 382 area, so that's a $12 bounce easily, a couple times. See what I'm saying? And so that was a great indicator to say this thing could run up. And then the momentum, as the news wore off of the tragic accident, it did bounce up that next day. But we decided in the room we weren't going to play this, and it did pull back down to that support area. So you know, if you didn't have a heart, you could have got in this down here and bounced it on up to 400, and then took it back down, shorted it, and just played off that trend. And I would probably have used my trend lines more than anything, but there's also good indicators telling me, like on Friday on this trade, that when we had that golden cross, that this would have been a wonderful play, especially these little moving averages right here, where the 20 bounced on up over the 50, the 100, and the 200, which just gave it supposed to be some real strong strength, and it followed that 200 all the way up. And then she started pulling back in a descending pattern at the end of the day, which you could have probably got in up here at that and shorted it down to this level right here, which would have been about $7 or $8. So that's BA. Then we're going to look at ATOS. I got in Friday. I mean, this was an ugly play for me, but I scalped it for about, I think it was about 12 cents, made $40 on it. And then I just decided I ain't going to play this trade anymore because it was showing a descending pattern and it disrespected that 20 SMA. And by this time, I just said, you know, I'm not going to follow it all the way down because my other moving averages were crossed down too. The 50 was below the 100 and the 200, which was also a weak sign. Now, if they were turned around the other way, if the 50 was above the 100 and the 100 was above the 200, it would have been a more positive play for me. And I'll show you on the previous day what I'm talking about. We'll go to the 5-minute on the previous day. You notice here we are, a totally different swing right here. We had the big breakout previous that morning. I got in, played the pullback, and then she went ahead and she ran up all the way up to 774. But you notice the 50 is above, the 220 is above the 50, the 100, and the 200, which is telling me, and that big spread, telling me that this was a very strong play for the rest of the day. And we did try to go below that 50, but yet it still gained respect and followed it on the way up. And then the weakness came when it started bending down and all the moving averages started going down in a reverse pattern. And now you see them just the opposite. You see the 50, the 20, the 50, the 100, and the 200, just the total opposite of what you see here, which is a sign of weakness. And you catch that before. I'm good at dead cat bounces, so you know I'm going to scalp these babies and get out and make me 40, 50 bucks on a trade. But once it got below it, it ran up and it hit that 20. So these are, you know, more of a professional, and other people would move on to another trade. But I played money on this going up, and I wanted to make money on this going down, and that's exactly what I did. And here's, let's look at a couple more. AVGO. You see the stock, it respects the 20 SMA. It moves on above it, still respected, but once these moving averages started going down below the 50 and the 100, it started showing a sign of weakness. So, and that's true with your EMAs. They'll work the same way. They're just a little faster indicator, but it's also a lagging indicator, but they are faster. And they're made for day trading. These moving averages I play for dead cat bounces, and I play them as support, resistance, and pivot points. If it does pull back and it still has the volume and the momentum behind it. So AVGR, see how it solely respected. This could be a good little swing trade from 4 or 5 days. It possibly respected the 20 all the way up, kept respecting the 20, did have a little sell off, but it hit that 50, bounced right back up, and she just kept on going up, and still respecting the 20 SMA. So we want to keep AVGR on our watch list Monday and see what happens. But it's still moving up, and there's still, everything's in the perfect order. You got the 20, the 100, the 50, and then the 20. I mean, the 200, the 100, the 50, and the 20, and it's still showing respect on the 20 SMA. And if I wanted to really look at this chart, different time frames tell different stories. So we had like a 244 high on this, and on the 200 day, we're about ready to touch that 200 SMA right there. See how we bounced up, and you notice they're different. Time frames show different trend lines, different moving averages. So there's just Rodka, RKDA, was another nice little play Friday. Looks like I wrote some kind of gibberish in here previously. I've been following this stock for a long time. We had a huge breakout on news, and it just disrespected the news. It ran up here to 1085, and then we pulled on back to this 795 area at close. Now this is one I want to keep on watch, because we did pull back to those previous highs that we had that just couldn't break. So I think this one here, we might be able to get us another dead cat bounce on it. See if that 50 wants to rise up and move up a little bit. So I'll be watching RKDA Monday morning, maybe for another retracement bounce. So I kind of showed you how I created a morning watch list. I do it on gap up plays, and then I add my other watch list that I have set up for the room, which is the $1 to $10 with a 3% breakout above 300,000 in volume. And usually a lot of the times on that one, there's always good plays to play on it. And I'm going to look at that watch list and show you one more time on this baby. Volume high, I can go up to percentage high on the scan. And we had a lot of them in here Friday that were above 10%, that were all good. And then I always look at the volume high, because that's what I respect the most. And I want to see if they have news. So a lot of these stocks on here were probably pretty good plays Friday. They come out, they're above 3%, and by the end of the day, you're up 7%, 22% on this one right here. That had that huge breakout pre-market, and still way above where it was, and you could have a turnaround play on it, but I don't like this here's hard sell-off at all. Here's another one, nice little trend from 521 up to 590 in 5 days. Flex had a bottom here at 991 and ran all the way up to 1048, kind of consolidated here at the end. Here's one that had a pretty hard sell-off at one time. Kind of still selling off and starting to turn around a little bit. The 50, you notice the 20 here is starting to go above the other moving averages. Here's another one right here, CFMS. Nice little bottom play here 5 days ago. Now we're sitting up here at 178 from 110. And that's just, how I kind of start my day off. Okay, well, I think that's about it. Every breakout always has a pullback, like Miss Vegas says. And I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day too. So we've been at this for about an hour now, about an hour and 7 minutes. And I'm going to ask the room if they have any questions. And we'll get a little questions on the moving averages, or how I find a watch list in the morning, or even how I draw trend lines. You know, like right here on this trade right here, CFMS, we got a little breakout resistance right up in here, right around the 178 area. So I'm going to draw me a little trend line right there, and I see this little spot right here where we had a consolidated period. We pull back here to about 165. So I'm looking for places of consolidation. Right about there. And then another one right about in here. But I'm going to look at probably right there. It looks solid to me. Then we have another one right here. The resistance level. And I'm just drawing these places where they kind of match up, the candles do. So if I was to play this one, I'm going to look at a year's chart. We had a resistance, look at that. So from this trend line right here, we almost had a year high up here of 184. So we're at a double top on a yearly chart, which is a pretty good sign that it's either wants to pull back. I'm having a little issues with my I have a little issue here. I forgot what stock we were looking at there. There it is. Another double top right here on this one, AQMS. Right about that 385 area. So here we go on this one right here, CFMS. So we had like that double top area right there at 178, 184. So I'm kind of thinking maybe it wants to pull back to this other support level right down here, right around 140, which is a 30-cent pullback. But I'm going to look at the 20-day, kind of get another picture of it. We have a top right here. Hold on, I'm getting somebody on the phone here. Hello, Miss Vegas. That's at 385 area. Oh, wrong one. Let me call her back, see what she wants to get on here and talk for a second. You there, Miss Vegas? Yep. Pretty close to it. Pretty close to it. Oh yeah, I'll look at them right now. Yep. Okay. So let me see. Does anyone have a question? What are my VWAP settings? They're set at the natural VWAP setting. We can look at it. We'll go here to studies. Edit studies. Computer's acting a little strange here right now. So these are my settings that I have it on it right now. I have the -2 and the +2. So those are my VWAP settings that I have on here right now. hope that answers your question. But it's usually just the natural setup that you get on the Thinkorswim platform. You want to get my thoughts on DPW? Okay, let's see what else is open. Open interest versus volume. Well, usually I'm a volume kind of guy, and the open interest does have a lot to do with the volume indicators. So I just kind of work off my volume off the tape. That's my open interest department. And then I'm going to look at DPW. We had a little knife on DPW out here. She did pull. Ooh, she pulled back pretty bad. I've had like a 10 cent support on this stock, and this was after a split, if I remember right. It had a, yeah, see, sometimes these reverse splits are worthless, especially when a stock has a bad name for itself. But we had an announcement of a 20-for-1 reverse stock split effective on the 15th, and look at her where she is right now. She's back down here, right down to about 71. I'm having some real bad issues right now with Thinkorswim for some reason. No. Nope. I did call you. Nope. I called you back. Yeah. No, I because I picked up on my left. Okay. Okay, so the pullback on, like I said, this is a reverse split on stock that's not doing very well, DPW. And so I'm kind of looking at it right now. I think it probably could pull back more. I mean, to me, this stock is worthless, especially after the reverse split when it was down there at 10 cents. And they try to bring it up back above a buck, and I think it'll just fail some more. So that's what I think about this trade right now. I'm having some real bad issues with my Thinkorswim platform right now. So let's see what else we can do here. Okay, anybody else have any questions they'd like to ask? Hello, Rich. Can I look at CHFS? Yes. I'm going to pull up my other chart here. This is another bottom play I can see. Been back here, this thing back about 2 years ago when these red trend lines are here. We've had a pretty hard sell off. Looks to me like it's got warrants up in business right now. It came out on the 13th. Filing shows registration for Series F convertible preferred stock warrants. It had a public offering, underwritten 12 million, so that's not good news either. So it's desperate for money. Earnings probably aren't too good either. So this is one that that I probably wouldn't play right now. I probably, if you did, it'd be a small little volume bounce. That's kind of what I'm seeing right now. Yeah, I'm having major issues right now with my internet, it looks like. We're having storms here in Missouri. So I'm looking at it. Let me look at the daily and see what the daily tells us. Yeah, I'm not seeing much. Maybe a scalper play on this trade right now. Not with all the bad news on it. Not with the offering coming out and then the convertible notes. They're kind of scrambling. So this would be a trade. If I wanted to trade it, I'd wait for 324, maybe for support. Pivot point right around 345 and then 371. So that's kind of how I'm seeing this trade right now. I wouldn't want to mess with it too much. How many shares in a float? That means how many shares are open to the public for buying and selling? John? I'll look at IGC in a second. It says here, hey Jim, new here and new trader. Is it best for me to stay away from short floats with massive short interest? I'm getting killed in here. Well, here's a good stock. I think here will definitely turn around a little bit. But here, I've been very bullish on here for almost a year now. And this last earnings didn't seem too bad either. So I'm thinking we're going to have a reversal on here where we are right now. And let me pull up here. I've got this, I've been watching this stock real close. Let me take this off here. I don't want to clear that. I want to remove the drawing. So I'm going to pull up maybe a 20-day. And I'm going to show you where I think we're at a support level. We definitely got oversold at 1335. But we've been down here before 4 different times. And every time we've got down to this level, she's bounced back up. So we got kind of a little pivot point resistance here at 15. I think it can turn around. I just think these last couple of days have been brutal. I don't know really why. I really don't. I know just 20 days ago we were up here at this level here around 18. Then she consolidated in a channel. And that 16 I've been calling out as a resistance to get out of it every time it pulled down to about 15. So I think we're way oversold here and it's an overreaction. I don't think it can go any lower than this. If it does, then I'd start having some major concerns. But we're going to come in here Monday and I bet you this thing starts to turn around. You're here. And that's the way I feel about that in a way. And to me, a low float stock is anything under 25 million. And yes, they can be a brutal play. They're a scalper play. A lot of people just trade low float stocks. The higher the float, the more strength it has of carrying its own weight. The lower it is, the bigger of a bounce, the bigger the volatility. So anything above 10 million is pretty respectful. Anything below the 25 million I would consider a low float. And just know when you're in a BPTH was a special exception. That stock ran incredibly from $5 all the way up to 75 in a matter of a couple of days. And that was a very strong stock with a float of under 1 million. So they're very volatile, and they're the kind of stocks you want to get in and get out and take your profit. And maybe get back in the next day. Yeah, I'm looking at the RSI. The RSI has a little crossover here, and they'll start to turn up. And the way I do crossovers, they do like a double fake out. This one had a triple. It did pull up, rise above it, bounced up, but then pulled right back, and then the next time, bam, she ran all the way up. Same here. You had that little double fake out where it come down and then it came out again. Then bam, she ran up. She ran back up. So on this last one, it looks kind of brutal. We did have kind of a little curl up. I think if this thing runs back up to that 30, you'll have a bounce back up here at around the 14 bucks, 14, somewhere in this area right here, 14.42. And maybe if you want to come back down a little bit, then gain more strength. But I wasn't very disappointed in the earnings at all. I think the forecast is what scared the people, and that makes a big. And they still have a price target on this trade for $22. Some of them have a price target at 30. So I just think it's way oversold. That's my opinion. Some have a price target at 22. And I have a price target around 16 to 18. 16 for sure on here. So I've answered questions about CHFS. I kind of answered about the float. A lot of people are low float players. That's all they play because it's very volatile. A lot of scalpers play them low floats. Not too many people will hold on to them. They'll take the profit. Once you get profit, get out of it. Walk away a happy man or woman. BPTH is a special exception, and you'll have 2 or 3 of them a year that run like that. But a lot of them don't hold. They're ground, but so far BPTH has. And that's quite impressive to me. So we're about finished here. Does anybody else have any more questions of a stock they want me to look at? Thoughts on Nile is a good question. I bought me some calls on Nile Friday at 579. I've had called that bottom support before, and I'm going to pull up the now the only thing about Nile that's kind of got me in a crawl right now is their earnings were just very horrible, but you got the fat cats that are calling it a buy right now, from Goldman Sachs to a couple other traders. And I just think we're down here at a bottom again. But the sediment is a little bit different on NEO right now. We ran this all the way up from this area right here when I called it out, all the way up to about 1064. We had that triple top. And then here in the last week and a half, it's pulled back. I did call pull back to $7 off the earnings news, and then we dropped another $1.25. So we're at an area right now where I think Nile is a buy, and I do think we are going to start, but it's going to take a catalyst to really bring this stock back up. But I do think it's reasonable for a bounce play back to $6 easy. $6 very easy. We might get back up here into the trend again, which I had it right around 662. That's where I called it last time. And I'm going to draw a little trend line right there because that's the area that we have to break to bring it up anymore. And I'm going to change this red because that's going to be a hard target for me to want to hit. But I do believe we're going to get back up to 6 easily. And that's NEO. IGC. We'll take a good fast look at it. IGC. IGC is a stock also that we ran up huge. In Vegas and I did. We ran this thing all the way up to this level right here, and we called it out. Then we started getting the news it was a fake company, and it was getting real bad publicity. So she did have real bad knives right here, real ugly ones. Bounced up a little bit, and then it got down here to the very bottom low. And then here just recently it got, I think it got some kind of halfway decent news where the appeal for delisting was appealed, so they got back on the NASDAQ, and that to this stock was good news. But this was a stock that we noticed that had an outside window air conditioner in their corporate office building at one time. So, but still remember, it's got lawsuits against it, so always remember that. And this was a scalper play. It's not nothing that's going to make you a lot of money in. It's something that you're going to scalp. You don't want to swing this trade. You want to try to get in at support level. And let me look at the 5-day here. And I'd say that support level is right around 215 for now, but let's look a little bit deeper. Got a low support right here, right around 182. We do have a descending pattern going down, lower highs, which is a descending pattern. So we have 3 different support levels, 215, 205, and 182. And notice that my 20 SMA is down below the other 2 moving averages, so it's still showing a sign of weakness. So if you get down here to the triple bottom at 182, that might be a good buy to scalp it up to $2 bucks to 220, to maybe 215. That's IGC. Shrimp was a beautiful play. The momentum has kind of faded out on it now. The volume has pulled back. You can tell by the volume how we were very active up in here and how she's pulled back here lately. So I think support, we're getting down here to support level again, right around this 25 area, 26. Let me pull up a 180 day, check it out, magnify it up a little bit, get rid of this. You know, I'm about ready to erase all these trend lines out. I think I will. So let me take a good look, clear the drawing set, get a better picture of it. So we got a support level right here, right at 27.12. We got a lower support right down here, right around the 23, 24 area, and then a low support right down at the 20 cent area. So she can run back up to the 30. Just a little bit of news, maybe a catalyst, but this is, me and Vegas really liked this trade. It was great for the shrimp lovers. I mean, tons of shrimp consumed. It's one of the most consumed products that's in the ocean right now. And if you can raise this on land instead of digging it out of the sea, all the best. It might not taste as good, but if they can get away with that, same as what is it, QBC or whatever stock we were watching last week. So yeah, low support around 20 cents. Pivot point, your first support right here at 27. And then you got your 3 resistances that are up here. You got that 30-cent pivot point. Then you got these other 3 right here. And if it breaks past that 45 area, we can run it back up to 60 again. And that's right about in that area. This is shrimp. So keep an eye on the volume and keep an eye on the news. Any kind of news would be a good catalyst for this trade. AQB is, that's right, Rich. That's the one that we liked about salmon. And let's take a look at AQB real fast, and then I'm about ready to call it quits. I hope everybody enjoyed this little bitty session about how I use my moving averages. It's wise to go ahead and learn how to use the EMAs. I'll be bringing them out probably next week and talk about them a little bit. They're a faster moving average compared to the SMA, which is a slower moving average. And I try to get the beginners to start off with them and then work their way up to the EMAs. So this was a stock that I really was thinking that we could have a good run on. It has pulled back to support area. I do believe right around this 285, 80 something area. I don't want to see it get down to 268. If it does, that's going to be a very strong buy. Very strong buy. But this is a company that's raising salmon. And that's my favorite fish next to mahi-mahi and crappie and maybe a walleye. But salmon's what I see in the stores, and salmon's what they get in the restaurants. That's probably one of the biggest. Tons and tons are drawn out of the Atlantic Ocean alone. So I'm going to keep my eye on this one. I pulled back below that. If it go, I'm down to my little support level that I called in the room. If it does get down to this 270 area, that's going to be a very strong buy for me. AQB. Well, you're welcome, Rick. I hope everybody subscribes that's in here to our YouTube channel, and maybe come to our room and join the trial period that we have, if anybody's new that's listening to this right now. And I just want to thank everybody for being here today, taking time out of your St. Patrick's Day. Don't drive, make sure you drive safely tonight if you're going to any parties. And I'll take one more ticker before I leave. So if anybody has one in mind, that'll be fine with me. But I think we had a little bit of technical difficulty there for just a little bit. I notice everything's running smooth now. So it might have been the storm that we're having outside or something. But this has been a lot of fun for me, and I just want to say thank you to everybody that showed up. And please subscribe to Vegas and I YouTube channel. And it'll always be here for you to watch our aftermarket reports that we do 5 times a week. We had an edition come out today for Sunday of this coming week's watch list. Some that we're very positive about. ACB was on it. There's a few others. We got a new pot stock that we're watching. I want to type this into the window. Keep a good eye on this one here. It had some of the best news that I've seen in a while besides ACB last week, which to me was a very positive news. It really ran that stock up. So keep a good eye on this. Look at the website. Look at the news that came out on it. Keep an eye on Boeing. KEG was a good little run. One to really watch. Roku. I'll talk about Roku. Roku got a little bit of downgrading last week, so it pulled back. That would have been a nice little call situation. I do believe that this is a great company. It did almost run up to my resistance level that I called at 76.45. We almost tapped into that $75 area, and then last week it got all that downgraded news, which I think just a lot of buyers were jealous because they didn't get on that great run. So last couple of days we are seeing an uptrend. We're seeing what you call this uptrend, lower highs and higher highs. So I do believe we kind of hit a bottom there, and we can take this easily back to this red mark at 65.42. And if that completes its destination, we could probably run this back up to 67. But what you're going to see now is a new channel created. You're going to see a new channel that's going to be created, but we are in an upward trend right now from these 2 lower highs. And I'm going to go ahead and put this trend line in here. And right here to right here, just run it on out to right about there. So you see the upward trend, and you also see it going from here. You could almost call this an ascending breakout channel too, if the base was just a little bit higher, but we're going to draw this all the way across right here. So what we're seeing here is a flag, an ascending triangle flag, where maybe we come in here Monday and it's going to bounce above it and break this resistance of 63.20. And if that happens, you're going to go back up here to 65.40, and heck, that's a $2 bounce. See what I'm saying? So, that's a $2 trade, and I'd take it up there real easily. And feel free to pause this videotape if you like and draw these supports and resistance lines out. The room did call this very well when it was down here on a breakout. Congratulations. And OMID's a pumper play. We'll look at it real fast. He did have a nice little breakout Friday. That's pretty cool. I'm going to see if anything happened in the news. Yeah, they declared dividend. That's good news. Yeah, seems like it's getting some pretty decent news right now. So if I believe right, this might be a low float stock too. So let's look at the 20-day real fast, see where we are here. We definitely broke past resistance. Your support level is going to be right around in here between that 89 and 92 area. You could probably get a little bounce play off of it. Low support right around the 86. That's on OMED. Definitely seeing a good support area right here around 90. I'm going to turn that into a red line. I'd hate to see it go any lower than that. So you've got three different supports on this stock right now with that 90 cents, 92.63, and then you got your 97.29. And yes, I was watching this Friday too. Oil plays are heating up. Yep, the driving season, the businesses, factories are going to start going back to work. So energy's back in play. So do we have any others we want? Keg, who you think on Keg we did? Yes, yes, Vegas wrote that in. D is Dominion Energy. Looks to me like a nice little breakout right there. So we got a support level here at 75. Let me get that trend line going here. 75 all the way up to 75.86. We got another trend right here at 76.23. Let's look at the year chart. We're getting ready to break out of a double top. That's good news. So yeah, this is looking pretty good. Look at that run it's had all the way down here from 68 all the way up to 77. So you got a couple little pullback areas. The support level on this right now is going to be at 75.15, and maybe one right here around 75.61. So yeah, we're getting ready to have a double top breakout on a yearly chart. Let's see if it wants to do that. If we're going to do that, let's pull up a 3-year and see if we got any more resistances. And we do. This thing can go a little bit higher. See a resistance. Looks like a resistance at 77.58 with another one right here. So we got a double top breakout. This is a momentum play. We got one right here. And we got one right there. Okay. Let's see if we can break out of this double top here. If we can do that, we're going to hit these other resistances up in this wall. I'm going to go back to a 20-day. The next resistance is going to be right around 77.58. Let's go to a 180-day, 4-hour. So you got jot these down on paper. You got 58, 78.25, and 78.60. 78.60. And that's going to be on the big D. We are at a double top breakout right now, and it looks to me like it popped up after hours to 77.24. So I think she does want to break it. That's a beautiful, beautiful chart on D. I'm going to keep this one on watch. Thank you very much on this one. So I'm going to shut this down. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Remember, your moving averages, everybody trades different. Try to find a way that fits you the best. You know, none of us can sit here and be behind a computer all day long. You can always play the pre-market. You can set yourself up after market. You can swing trade. You can play options for people that that can't be behind the computer but can watch certain tickers. I know one person that plays 5 stocks and that's all they play. And they're a pretty good trader. So always create a good watch list. Start out in the morning from that gappers up. Them gap up plays, weed them out. Remember, you know, they gap up, they can gap right back down. Find one that's consistent. that's not as volatile, that can last all day long. News, float, uh, even the blocks, the trades, the money that's going into the trade is a good catalyst. But you know, it's like the ACB runs mostly on. It's an undervalued stock that runs on good news. Every time something good comes out about it, it just wants to run up more. It's getting more positive. I was real hardcore on Cron at $6, ran it all the way to 20 to 25. CGC, same way. It's a good stock to play. CGC, Tillery, but we're adding a couple more. Vegas and I discussed what the problem is. The yield. They need more yield. They need more grow farms to match the demand. So in stocks, it's always about demand. Even when you're trading a stock to try to find trends, it's all about the demand, the price, you know, the volume. So I think that's about it. I could go on, and I just want to thank everybody for showing up. And please follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I'm going to wish everybody a great day. And I'm going to go ahead and shut this thing down. And thank you very much. I love stocks. Really pleased you showed up today on St. Patty's Day. That really means a lot to me. And keep an eye on the pot plays this coming week and the energy plays, and it's the season for germination, so you want to keep, you know, trade the sectors that match the seasons. Keep an eye on that heat map and find a way that fits you best when you become a trader. This market's open to many ways. And I'm going to go ahead and shut her on down. Thank you very much.